Ladies and gentlemen, so now I'd like to continue speaking about the Eurostar. So the Eurotunnel consists of actually two tunnels, one which goes in each direction, one towards France and one towards England. But there is actually a third tunnel as well, and this is the service tunnel, which is actually a smaller one. The service tunnel has very large doors, special doors, which prevent wind from passing from one tunnel into the next. But actually there is also a special set of doors to prevent foxes from coming through into the UK. This is because the Brits are very scared of rabies. And so we asked the French to build these doors specially so that we wouldn't have dirty French foxes invading, as well as the potential for the French invading. Anyway, enough about France, and let's talk a little bit more about issues of maintenance of the tunnel. So, as you can imagine, all year round, maintenance has to take place in the tunnels itself. There are rescue teams at the ready in case any accidents occur, and these rescue teams would, if there is an accident occurring, would travel through the service tunnel in order to reach the stranded passengers. The service tunnel can also serve as a refuge in the case of a train being blocked in the tunnel. Now, of course, when trains go through the Eurotunnel and transport freight goods, they have to, of course, turn around at the other end in order to return to carry out the same journey in the other direction. And I found out some interesting information on this point because the simplest system, as you could probably imagine, would simply be for the trains to go from France to England and then to do a U-turn and then to go back the other way. Now, this is indeed what happens on the English side of the Eurostar, of the Eurotunnel, sorry, not the Eurostar. But on the French side, there is an inverted loop. And the reason for this is that if the trains were simply to do a circle at each end, then the wheels would wear down on one side of the train. But the trains are very heavy, and so when the trains take this turn, when they take the curve, then the wheels get more used on one side than the other. And this is why there is this special inverted loop on the other side, on the French side. So on the English side, the trains turn around in a clockwise way, and on the French side, they turn around in an anti-clockwise way. So how much do the trains actually weigh? Well, each Eurotunnel train weighs 2,400 tons when it is loaded with vehicles. This is an incredible weight to have to push through a tunnel, so there are engines at both ends of the train. And of course there have to be a great many safety measures put in place so as to ensure that there are no accidents. As the driver is driving the train, he has to keep his thumb permanently pushed against a lever so as to ensure that he is awake, so as to ensure that the train is being driven by someone who is awake the whole time. If his thumb slips off the lever, then an alarm will sound to wake up the driver, and then if he doesn't wake up, then the train brakes automatically start slowing the train down. So the maintenance that takes place throughout the year on the tracks means that it can be very difficult for the trains to provide a full service throughout the year. But there are indeed solutions for maintaining a full service, even when the tracks inside the tunnel have to be replaced. The system here is that there are two tunnels which can be used by the trains, and so if one length of track has to be replaced, then the train will swap over onto the other tunnel for a short length of track, and then it will move back into the original tunnel. This is done through a number of crossover points which exist through the tunnel. Now, as I explained to you, the service tunnel runs between the two train tunnels. So at the crossover points, what happens is that the service tunnel runs below the junction. So there is a crossover junction like this, connecting the two train tunnels, and a service tunnel which passes underneath. And what about the trains themselves? How is maintenance carried out for the trains? Well, there is an immense workshop which exists for the mechanics who replace the parts on the train. The workshop is 1 kilometer long, so that means that it can contain a full-length Eurostar train. Every 12 days, each train is taken into this giant workshop, and all of the brakes are checked, and the engine is given a check as well. Then, every 18 months, the trains are entirely stripped of all their parts, and they are cleaned and replaced if necessary. Now, at peak time, there is a train entering the Eurotunnel every 4 minutes. So this means that, of course, there is a lot of traffic, and this has to be managed very carefully. So this means that there is an enormous centre which has been created, which is a little bit like an air traffic control tower. What happens is that there are giant screens which show exactly where each train is in the tunnel, or the trains that are waiting to enter the tunnel. And the people working here have to pay great attention to the trains to ensure that there are no accidents occurring. There has to always be at least 1 kilometer distance between each train and the one in front of it. Otherwise, the trains are ordered to come to a halt. And this is why sometimes you may find that you're travelling on the Eurostar and the train stops for some unknown reason. But there are nevertheless sometimes accidents that do occur. Maybe you know about the accident that happened in 1996. I remember seeing it on the news at the time. At this time, a freight carriage set alight just as it was entering the tunnel. This fire then spread to 10 other carriages, which were engulfed in flames, and also the engine set alight as well. It was found that this was actually an act of arson. It was a criminal offence. It took a total of 6 months to put the tunnel back into working order after this event. Now, of course, the Eurotunnel and the Eurostar represent a huge investment, and so the French and British government were a bit reluctant to invest in such a large project, so they made it a private project. So shares were issued, and at first people were very keen to snap up all the shares that they could, since the Eurostar is such an exciting project. At first, each share had the value of 35 francs, but this value suddenly rose as a result of the hype of the Eurostar, and the price was driven up to 120 francs. But then it turned out that the building costs would have to triple. It was announced that the company building the project would have not enough funding, and so the shares suddenly tumbled to only 4 francs each. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've found this an interesting topic. I'm afraid to see that we are out of time. So, thank you for listening, and hopefully you'll be able to travel on the Eurostar soon.